Hello, everyone, and welcome to the January 18th edition of the SIG Network meeting. As usual, this meeting is governed by the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, boiling down to effectively be nice to one another, so please do be nice to one another. If you have questions or want to interject as we're talking, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom, as that helps us to prioritize and organize the conversation. We have a reasonably light agenda on today with one fairly big issue, so we still have room if you want to put something on the agenda for today, and if we can get to it today, we will. It's an open agenda. Otherwise, we can roll it over to the next week. 3 items on the agenda today, and I'll start sharing my screen. That working? Okay. Cool. So yeah, if you have any agenda items you want to bring up, please do feel free to put them at the bottom while we're talking. Otherwise, we'll get started with triage. I didn't do any prep, so I'm a little bit behind here, but I figure we can start with, what do you think, Tim? Should we go with the ones that don't have assignees and start at the back?
I usually go from newest to oldest so that we can at least have a first look at new ones.
Okay.
And see if we can get anybody to volunteer to follow up.
All right, we'll start with these 3 at least. All right, first item, accessing node port on Kate's host has latency when reaching pods across different hosts. I have deployed a Kubernetes cluster on Debian 12.4 operating system. I am using a test image. Accessing pod on the local machine works fine. If it's on another host, I get a full 1 second delay before receiving a response. TCP dump says the first request resulted in a connection reset.
Oh, look, it's localhost node ports.
See if anybody has actually looked at this one yet.
I can respond to this one. Yeah, localhost node ports is maybe a contributing factor. It's not clear what they're using for the networking stack, so I'll look at this one.
Okay, thank you. All right. Next one, E2E test slated for removal when we drop cloud providers. You can generate the list of tests that will be removed.
Yeah,
it seems pretty straightforward.
For us, it's the load balancer. Dan Winsip and I were talking. And I don't know if you remember 1 year ago or something, I did a demo of the kind cloud provider that is able to test the load balancer.
Yep.
So the only thing are the GC only tests. Those are going to be removed if they don't test, they don't run in any other place.
Okay.
So that's something.
So this is one that, roger that. So this is one that we just need to accept and get around to when everything.
I think we want to make sure that we have some pre-submit test that will test these.
Yes, assigned to Dan and I. Assigned to Dan and to me, and so I share with him. Do you mind, Dan?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. So we'll follow up on that one. Next one, UDP connections of services are not preserved after restarting kube proxy.
So yeah,
when running kube proxy with log.
He already has a PR for this as well. We're sort of debating if it's too theoretical to want to fix right now, but yeah, okay. It's you can triage accept this at least.
Okay. I forget actually. Is it triage? Yeah. It's been a couple weeks. Triage accept.
Is it accept it or accept?
Yeah, that's what I like. It's been since before Christmas since I did anything on upstream stuff, so I always forget. If that fails, I'll come back to it later. There we go. Okay. Cool. And then let's see what else we got. So now we have a few more that actually have assignees. Rob, topology aware routing. Do you want to talk about this one real quick, or is this one kind of just in hand already? Is there anything you need there?
You can open it up. I thought I responded to it. Yeah, it's a known issue. Maybe maybe like working as intended. Maybe I'll just close it out. There hasn't been a response in 2 weeks, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Let's just make sure that we make it clear that if there still is an issue and we're not seeing it, please do for him to come back and bring it back up. Kate's cluster issue. Who's got that? Mike's got that. Do we need to go through these ones that are assigned? Everybody's here, I think, or people are here, or should we just go on to the next one that's not assigned? Just a reminder for everybody who has one assigned, maybe to check in on it.
Yeah, please. And remember, if you get assigned an issue, it doesn't mean you have to solve the issue. We're only asking you to ask the questions to help figure out, is this real? Is this the customer issue? How do we proceed with it and figure out where it goes? You don't have to solve it. So please, we're crowdsourcing our issue management here. Please volunteer.
Just initial triage, yeah. All right, we got flaking tests, SIG apps. Deployment should not disrupt a cloud load balancer's connectivity during rollout. Huh. Okay. Antonio took a look at it.
Okay, that's the problem. So in infra, you know, the problem with the budget and all the stuff. So right now we have, I think that they try to have half of the jobs in AWS, another half in. Okay, Arnaud is there. Okay, Arnaud, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think there's an issue with the load balancer on GCE, but basically Pod Identity Sandbox is another project I set up for different needs, so we can ignore that, but it's still, the test is still flaking on another project. I think that's like the one thing we need to investigate.
No, but there is one thing. The load balancers in AWS doesn't work without annotation. You need to set up an annotation to work with a normal load balancer. You create an that was my investigation last time. So we cannot run the normal load balancer test in AWS because they require an annotation. They tried to add an annotation to the test, and I told them that better to keep the test generic, right? To not hard code.
Yeah, for the load balancer created by the test inside the Kker report, yes, but in the KOps case, the load balancer is created by the AWS controller manager, which is, I think we were able to solve that. Now it's flaking on GC for no reason. I can take a look again.
Okay, then ping me offline and...
Okay.
Okay. Is it okay if I sign this one to you, Antonio?
To me.
Just to kind of figure out where it's going next. If you don't want that, let me know. All right. Flake GCE master scale correctness. Here we got one more that's not assigned. Load balancers should work from pods. New flake. Create and tear down standard tier load balancer. Rob knows all about this stuff, right?
No, this is
nah.
A couple layers below me, but I can try and find somebody who might know.
If you don't mind, yeah, that would be appreciated.
Sure.
You mind if I just put you on it and you'll just kind of see if you can set it in the right direction?
Sure, yeah, I can do that.
Yes, these are the tests that are going to be removed with Teams.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
Good call, yeah.
So should we just close this one, Antonio?
Add all of those to me. I will talk with Paco and consolidate and talk with Teams, and so we don't have.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that. So this one's Windows and networking. These ones always kind of make me go, I don't know. All right. I don't know. So services should serve endpoints on same port in different protocols. Okay. Anybody have anything to say about this one? Because I see Windows and I generally kind of just, I don't know.
Assign it to me.
Awesome.
This is a new conformance test that we know that at least Sirium doesn't pass.
Roger that. Okay. So that got down to here. What do we got? It's 17 minutes after. We could probably grab a couple more of these and just look at them.
Can you go to the remove node port from load balancer type service with allocate? Yeah, because now this is I don't know if teaming and color. This is the typical thing with patch, put whatever thing with services. And I think that I was working with this person to get so the thing is we added a new field that says allocate load balancer node port false, right? And they want to actually deallocate the ports. But I think that if they send a patch, they don't deallocate the node port, and they want to do that. And I was checking with him, and I think that we got the logic right. But this is always super confusing for me. I think that he right. I don't know if you want to read through all the. I don't remember because this was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And it's a typical problem of patch, no patch, defaults or not default, and we have logic in the strategy, we have logic in the storage, and the node port is not deallocated. And I think that it should be deallocated. If you send an update with the node port to 0 and the field to false, and he has a PR, and I think that we got it right. But I need reviewers, and I know that at least Tim and Carl were deep into this stuff.
Yeah, that corner case semantics sounds passable. I'm strictly speaking, like it's not okay, but in this particular case, we've made so many exceptions around these fields because service is so antiquated with respect to how we manage patching. It seems like I can't imagine this would actually break anybody.
No, but that's why I was telling the person patch. We are going to keep the same. What I'm trying to change is the update, right? The update is the put. No, if you send a put with false and you put everything to 0, I think that you should deallocate, no, or not.
Do we, by the time we're in our own logic, do we know that it's an update versus a patch?
That's when I get, between the strategy, the several layers and everything, that's what I get confused. And we got it working. What I don't know if it's just we got it working because we hacked something, and we added that several tests, and I don't
know. I'll have to look.
The PR is small. It's linked there.
Yeah, well, the PR is small, but the context to page in is large. I have to go digging through all that code that I haven't touched in a year and a half. The real problem is with KEP freeze coming up, I'm trying to shift all my attention to KEP. So any PR that isn't a KEP is probably going to be back burner for 2 weeks. But yes, is the PR should be assigned to me, right?
It is 2 weeks ago. Okay. I'm a little lost, so I'm waiting for anybody else to say anything more about this one. Otherwise,
I think this one's good. Thank you for popping it, Antonio. I'll look at it. I think we should probably move to the agenda now, huh?
Yep, sounds good. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate, and just remember, if you have something assigned to you that's been assigned for a couple of weeks, you just have to triage it. Like, just get it to in the right direction. And if you need any help, reach out in the SIG network channel of like what that right direction is. We're happy to help or like connect you with the right people if you need to figure out who works on something.
If we can't get an answer to a question in 4 weeks, we'll go ahead and close it.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't leave them open forever.
Roger that. All right. KEPs for 130. Tim?
Oh gosh, yes. I haven't run through the KEP dashboard. What are the top
KEPs? Hand over the? Okay.
No, I'm not going to pop the dashboard because I haven't been able to run through it yet this week. What are the KEPs that people are looking at for 130 that are top of priority? Anybody have one want to make sure that we get reviewed? I have a lot to review that are outside of SIG Network, so the reason I'm asking.
Should we just go over the board?
Yeah, I was going to avoid it, but yes, you're probably right. Let me find it real quick. Where's the new
It's
one?
in the doc right here, or at least one of the project boards in the doc. I can open it, or I'll just stop share. You can share. Either way.
One moment. Because Chrome doesn't like to share across virtual desktops. I have to move it here. Share a window. Hope I got the right one. Is this the right one? Yep. The dashboard that is still labeled work in progress, but is the one that I continue to use. All right, so I haven't really touched this in a number of weeks. What order? That's sorted by status. Do we have new ones? I haven't added any new ones this cycle. Do we have any new KEPs? Does anybody know? All right, I'll scan through new issues, but if we don't know, then there's probably no. Of these KEPs, let's go from GA and 30. There's a bunch that are going to graduate, right? We're going to get the trailing end of cleanup. That's awesome. 29 topology we're routing. So I know I just talked to Rob this morning. We're still hoping to get that in for 30, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Reserve node ports, you'll go GA, and it's supposed to go GA in 29. Did it go GA in 29? Yes, code was merged, yes. So I'll update this to be next. Cleanup in 31. GA transient node predicates did get in, right? And 31. Field status host IPs, that did go in. So it's beta and 29. So that will be, do we know if this is going to be GA in 31? I'm going to leave it until I can follow up. Anybody who knows these KEPs, please speak up. Add a network policy, we need to revisit that. This was Alexander's, no, yes, draining. Do we know the state of this one, anybody? Or is that just me?
Alexander is in the.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, you're here?
I need to refresh my memory with regards to all these. I haven't had time to look at any cube work for a while. But I haven't seen any issues being reported. At least I haven't been pinged on any of these. So I would assume according to plan.
Okay, and it did, this one, they all did go in for 29, right?
Yeah. I mean, the code is there, definitely. I'm just wondering, and I think like they're either beta or GA, so they're definitely active on these. But I just don't know exactly if they're beta or GA and in what release they're in and all of that.
Okay, if we want to move them forward in 30, can you just look at them, bump the version numbers in the KEP YAML and send them to me, and then we'll make sure we're good.
Yeah, let me put that on my to-do list for tomorrow.
Right. Awesome, thank you. Like you, I haven't heard any complaints.
Great.
Dual stack node handling, Mr. Dan.
Yeah, I should talk to some of the cloud people, make sure everything is working fine, but I believe that's ready to go to GA.
and oh, I'm supposed to shuffle these down. All right, I'll update the rest offline. Node IPAM, I'll check ports. Did we merge this? I forget.
No, I had it in the agenda. It's just Arnaud, Sarbets, and Max, they migrated to the private repo.
Yeah, that's private. The disabling health checks for load balancers. I forget if we merged this. All right, I'll have to go look. Dan, tell me about NF tables.
Still alpha for 130. Still planned for beta in 131 if you want to.
Is alpha in 29. You're looking for beta in 31? Well, wrong row. Can I control Z that? No, of course I can't. Oh, I can. I don't know what I just did now. Crud. NF tables is this row. You are alpha in 29.
Nope.
They're just sorted on.
Oh, that's what it did. Good grief. Okay, well, that's not super useful. How do I undo that? Crud. All right, I'll come back and update those offline while we're talking today. So beta and 31, and then were there others? Kubernetes were of load balancer behavior, load balancer IP mode. I haven't spent any time thinking about this cycle. I'll have to go look at it. Anybody else have KEP updates? Sorry, I'm trying to be quick and not waste a lot of time.
I don't know if try to move service siders to beta or not, honestly.
Okay. If you don't know, the answer is probably no.
It depends on the time, right?
Okay. Should I mark it as yes and
give me another next SIG Network meeting. I will.
Well, in 2 weeks. All right, that's fine. 2 weeks from now, we'll be pretty close to the deadline for KEP, so we need to decide. Okay. If anybody else has other KEP updates, let me know. I'll run through this and make sure that it's accurate now that I've screwed everything up. And I will yield my floor. Back to you, Shane.
Cool. Next item on the agenda is Mike Zappa talking about KNI discussion and the proof of concept. If you want to go ahead, we only have 30 minutes left, so just a reminder that we do have a couple other agenda items. You have co-hosts, so you should be good to go, Zappa.
Okay, I was talking and I was muted. That's not helpful. So cool. Yeah, I'm gonna do this relatively quick simply because it takes 45 minutes and has gone past 2.5 hours to give this presentation with questions and more. So I'm gonna zip through it, try to time box it to like 10 minutes, which is not enough time, but I'll post a link to the presentation in the agenda. And if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, we can post it in SIG Network and continue the conversation there if that works. So cool. I'm going to give the presentation on KNI, which, right now stands for, Kubernetes Network Interface. However, more people have been spreading it as Kubernetes Networking Reimagined. And for those that don't know me, I am, Zappa. I'm one of the SIG Network chairs, C9 Container D maintainers, and a software engineer with Azure Container Networking. Go to the next slide. So the quick agenda is going to be just like what it is, the current architecture, what we have, the KNI architecture, the network runtime, the flow, the ecosystem, benefits, demo, and links. I think we'll probably zip through a lot of this. So what KNI is that it's a foundational gRPC network API specific for Kubernetes. And really, this kind of started out with an effort I was talking with Tim back in December We're gonna, revisit past decision for the location of pod network setup and tear down, which everybody knows, or if they don't know, is handled by the container runtime. And one of the things that we're looking at is that, the CNI is orchestrator agnostic. So Kubernetes doesn't know about the CNI, and Kubernetes doesn't know, in reverse. So right now we are only actually getting the IP addresses from the CNI result. And then one item is that CNI 2.0 has been talked about being closer to Kubernetes, and it's also approaching 8 years old. So one of the big drivers was need for better integration with cloud and network hardware, and standardizing some of the common practices, such as requiring ETH0, running as a daemon, pod to pod networking. And actually, Tim mentioned KNA all the way back in September of 2016. So, as a quick summary to talk about the current architecture, is that right now the container runtime is involved with the CNI add and CNI delete, and that's implemented as a cry plugin, which is what is executing our CNI plugins. And that's driven by the run pod sandbox and stop pod sandbox. So run pod sandbox is what's responsible for creating the network namespace and then executing the CNI, while remove pod sandbox is responsible for executing the CNI delete and then the network namespace deletion. And these are all synchronous gRPC calls. So from the KNI architecture, and this is just how it's implemented from the proof of concept, is that there's really two approaches, embedded and standalone, where the embedded would follow the current pattern where the KNI would be actually implemented as a container D plugin, or a standalone where it's its individual running process. In this model, the kubelet becomes the KNI client, and then we have a running process called the network runtime, which could be used for executing CNI plugins or another implementation of your choosing. And this is where a few people have reached out with some confusion that, yes, the kubelet is the KNI client in this in the current proof of concept. So the network runtime an API is, obviously, I mentioned earlier, it's a gRPC interface, and it's a running daemon that could be embedded in the container runtime or its own independent running process. And I said that, the kubelet is the KNI client, and the network runtime is the KNI server. And these could be, as simple or as advanced as required. Simple could be simply just, doing pod setup and teardown and establishing the routing between nodes, or it could be as advanced as required, where it could be operating off of custom resources. If multi-network is one that people have floated, and then we also can operate off of the native Kubernetes objects, such as services or even network policy. So it's up to the individual implementer to make these decisions if we want it simple or as advanced. And sorry, I'm just zipping through this. I'm trying to just for the rest of the agenda. So some of the benefits that this kind of gives, full control over Kubernetes networking, almost like a pluggable network model that you could effectively offload all of networking into the network runtime. And one of the big things that people have been talking about from the cloud perspective is, giving the ability to say, hey, my network is ready, when you schedule a VNet or VPC or whatever cloud network noun you want to use, is that you can actually have better integration. One thing that people have been doing is withholding the CNI network configuration on disk as an indicator that the network has been set up appropriate. And another piece is availability. What networks are actually available on that node is a big question right now, especially with multi-tenancy and more multi-network efforts to decouple, this a lot of the larger efforts. And some things that I really think is that it's very extensible and flexible, really increases the innovation in the space, that people have, expressed interest in eliminating NAT, especially in the IPv6 theater, doing ECMP anti-cache routing for services, integration with BGP or other routing protocols, or top of rack switch integration. You could do multiple networks, set up virtual routers. And one thing that people are interested is that it decouples the pod and node network setup. Right now, there is the first pod issue where people usually when the first pod is scheduled, it's creating Linux bridges, VXLAN interfaces, or whatever you need, IP tables rules. So we can actually decouple that into two different RPC calls. And we can also say ability to verify and update networks, which obviously is not a MVP item unless people really want it. And then one thing is that I'm hoping that in the future that this can reduce the amount of changes to core Kubernetes, that we can make use of CRDs and more. It's KNI and the POC is actually a very low impact, low risk change. It was actually easier to implement it than to add a dependency into Kubernetes code base. And I think it fits really nicely with the Gateway API. We've had several conversations in regards to Gateway, network policy, 5G, DRA, multi-network, and it helps separate, the roles and responsibilities for, SIG Network and everybody else, so we can actually have some little bit better responsibilities. And I think were big pieces that were separating networking from the container runtime, which a lot of people, have had some thoughts on, from, separating the networking from the container runtime, as people found that to be a fragmented approach. And to go through the flow really quick, and I feel like I'm running against time right now, is that when we're with the world with the KNI is that RunPod Sandbox is modified from the container runtimes perspective to have a feature flag to disable the CNI execution. And then the next piece of the puzzle here is that once that successfully completes, none of this is asynchronous, so you can't just call attach network without RunPod Sandbox finishing. Pod sandbox status, which traditionally would return IP addresses, returns the network namespace path. And then the next one after that successfully completes is the attached network, which goes to the network runtime. And the demo actually will be doing CNI add. And then after that, we do create containers, which is very important here to maintain this flow. Because if you did attach network, create containers, then attach network, your containers are coming up with no network. And that simply cannot be the case. So the ordering right now is very important. And actually, how we currently implement it without KNI made it really easy to make these changes. Otherwise, it'd be quite a nightmare if everything happened in RunPod Sandbox. Decoupling that would have not been fun. And the same for the teardown is that we do the stop containers, then we detach the network, then we do stop pod sandbox, which deletes the network namespace, and everything handles things rather elegantly. So it's important to note that this is all synchronous, that we can't come up, the containers can't come up without a network. That's the big piece of the puzzle here. And one thing that I think that I want to state is that KNI is not just an interface. It's really what I'm hoping to be like an ecosystem of CRDs where we're reducing the amount of changes to core Kubernetes, where we could offload everything to the network runtime in most cases. So as I said that, IPAM, pods, network policy, scheduling, services, all could, be surrounding in this ecosystem. Cool. To the demo. And right now, it's just going to be the standalone approach where it's independent running process. The implementation's actually using the CNI. So it'll demonstrate the pod attach, the detach, and the query because querying the node, AK, what is setting the network ready. And I'm working on an embedded version where it's using container D, but it was a little tough to get moving. So let me share my other screen. So this is going to be a live demo. It won't be super exciting because we'll prove that pods come up with a IP address, and we could tear it down. And I did a very simplistic, scheduling pod with multiple CNI configurations. Can everybody see this?
Yep.
Cool. Right on. And I don't know, does everybody want me to completely tear it down and start it from scratch? It'll just take an extra minute. So I don't know if just scheduling a busy box, execing in and showing it is enough.
Yeah, go the minimum because I think we're going to be up against the wall on time.
Okay. Sweet. All right. So just as a quick example, well, let me make sure I have nothing running. So right now the cluster is running with the appropriate kubelet and container D in the network runtime. So we can easily prove that everything is coming up with an IP address and more. So cool, great, that's excellent. So we just proved that everything is going to the network runtime for the setup. It's returned an IP address. And, as a demonstration to just show some very basic flexibility with the KNI, I was able to do, I think I just did it right. Since this is live, you never know what's going to happen. Busy that I just simply had the network runtime, look at this very simple annotation. And this matches actually with, CNI network configuration, KNI net. So let's just prove that that actually came up first of all. It did. And then we can actually go into BusyBox. Ooh, busy. That's not right. IPL. It actually came up with two interfaces, E0, ETH1, and we can actually just go ahead that everything, if I could spell today, example, So we'll go ahead and start deleting these pods and go from there. Sorry, that was a very quick demo. I just wanted to prove that we can attach, detach, come up with IP addresses in a healthy state and demonstrate some basic flexibility where driving at, some sort of multi-network-esque approach with just annotations without changes to core Kubernetes. And, obviously you could use this as a proving ground to say, hey, what are our next steps with various items? So sorry for the very, very quick demo there, proof of concept. The links are up on the end of the presentation to everything. Actually, the demo that Tomo did, he helped make it very, elegant. You can run it there. The README is accurate. I've even started changes to, cryo just for funsies. And if I can get to the, questions, I do want a special thanks to everybody that's involved. There's more than just this list. The list is very long. I just haven't updated it yet. So thank you for your time. Sorry, I rushed through that. We don't have a lot of time.
That's okay. Thank you, Mike. Hopefully that gave everybody a pretty good taste of what's going on. I did post that there is, I don't think we're going to do questions because we don't have a lot of time. Oh, Tim wants to say something, but there is a mailing list conversation ongoing. So please do go in there. Mike posted all the links to all this stuff, including the presentation. So you should be able to find all the information there and get in touch and ask your questions. Go ahead, Tim.
I just wanted to say it's important to remember why CNI was put on the other side of the runtime interface in the first place. And that was because not all runtimes are actually container runtimes, right? Some runtimes are VM-ish runtimes. And so there used to be, there was an initial assumption that we would just bend CNI to take some parameters that told it whether to create a tap interface or a real interface, and then it would fit VM-ish. And there was a long discussion, and we decided that was not a good idea. And runtimes should make a decision themselves about how networking should work. right? And so container runtimes could use the container network interface, and VM runtimes could use something else. That issue hasn't gone away. There are still VM-ish runtimes, although they're less prevalent now, maybe. So I just wanted to raise that as a, let's not forget why we put the fence there in the first place.
Roger that. So yeah, given the tight timing, I think we will skip any more questions and stuff like that, but you can definitely post them in the mailing list. We'll move right on to Thomas, he wants to introduce Quadrant. Do you need screen sharing, Thomas?
No, I don't. No, it's gonna be less than 5 minutes, I think. Okay. Introduce, yes. Yeah, sure. Maybe one day we come back with a full presentation. It's pretty practical, really. Yesterday we were in a CNCF sandbox presentation, and they referred to you guys basically because they couldn't make up their mind. So I thought, okay, let's join this meeting and ask how that would work. But like very quickly, part of a project called Quadrant, we're basically creating gateway policies, gateway being a gateway API implementation. The idea is to be agnostic on which on the implementation of the gateway API. So we're not building an implementation ourselves. We're just building policies. So we have rate limiting, auth, DNS, and there's some more ideas there. We're also trying to contribute to Gateway API project. That's it. If you want to know more, we can come back and do a presentation. And I'm not actually, I'm an engineer, but I'm not an engineer on this project. So then somebody with more knowledge than me should come. My practical question is basically, so yesterday we did the CNCF sandbox presentation. And basically their feedback was, well, we defer the decision whether to go with this to the SIG network group, which I think is you guys. So that's why I'm here, really. Like, I want you to sign on a piece of paper that we're a super interesting project. No, like, any ideas on how we should move this forward, or this doesn't make any sense, like the process wise? I mean, open question.
Maybe can you rephrase that question? I'm not sure what you're hoping for here.
Well, so we're trying, like, one of the things we're doing basically. So it's get things started in the CNCF and become a sandbox project as a first step in that direction. And so then you do a presentation, and then you get feedback. And the feedback in our case was, we don't completely understand. We think you should get some opinion from this group. So my question is, like, how do we get that opinion from this group? We could do a longer presentation.
And my understanding of Quadrant is it's something that you layer on top of a gateway implementation. And sure. I think right now you're mostly focused on Istio, but it could be any implementation.
Yes, we're looking at Envoy Gateway, but yes, right now it only works with Istio. Yes, correct. That's correct. Yes.
Got it.
I've worked with David Martin a little bit on the your multi-cluster bit. That's actually why I was looking at that for a second.
Yeah, I didn't mention that, but yes, we also have there's something there. Yes.
Yeah, there's multi-cluster. I worked with David Martin. What did we work on? Right. But he's been involved in the Gateway API project a little bit. So
yes, correct. He's yes, correct, and maybe also Craig Brooks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
It's really unclear to me what opinion we're supposed to have. Like, I'm happy when ecosystem projects flower, right? Let a million flowers bloom.
Yeah.
I have no particular opinion on, the implementation or the design here because I haven't looked at it.
Sure.
I would ask, why is it not part of Istio, or why is it not, more closely related? I don't know. We don't need to discuss that here. I don't know what opinion to offer. Cool.
Yeah, I'll offer the opinion that it's very cool. I'm familiar with the project. It's very cool that you're getting bigger and going, further with it. I'm a very big fan that you're writing stuff in Rust. Tim, No, but I think it's great that you're kind of pushing it forward, and this is your part of that effort. You're trying to kind of get it out there further and do it. So do it. Yeah, we're happy to be a place where you can kind of demo it and
Cool.
tell people what's going on, especially as it relates to SIG Network and Gateway API. And please do join us in the Gateway API community meetings. Those are
Yeah, we
very
try to.
active, and yeah, and
Most of us
it's
in
a great
Europe,
place
so.
to be a great place to demo, especially when you're doing new or interesting things or stuff that you, or just talk about things that you need out of Gateway API in support of your project downstream.
Yeah,
So.
that was what I wanted to say is I don't think we need to assert any authority over this. This is not a SIG Network project. You're not beholden to us. But if you find that there are things that you need that don't work, please come talk to us.
Yeah,
there's
let us know
a
how we
long
can help you.
history of just working around things that don't quite work the way people want them to, and like I'd much rather you come back and say, hey guys, I want to do X, Y, Z, and Y doesn't work. Can you please fix it?
Right, makes sense. Cool.
Yeah,
Thank
I'll
you.
definitely keep Quadrant in mind more as we're, I know, like you mentioned, a lot are EU based, and so our usual meeting time doesn't work. We have one meeting a month now that might work for you, and I think some of you have been showing up there, which is great. And yeah, maybe we can follow up on Slack about ideas and get your feedback on potential extensions and extension models, because that's very much relevant to what you're doing here. Maybe one like question about implementation detail, like behind the scenes, are you basically like plugging in like Envoy filters in Istio, or is it?
We are doing WASM with it depends, like we don't do it exactly the same way and depending on the policy, but like for the rate limiting, we're going the WASM route. For the auth, we're going the external auth path of Envoy, because
cool.
Yes.
Great.
Okay.
Very cool.
Yeah, very cool.
If we want to do a longer presentation, if that makes sense, I can just add that to the next agenda, or how does that work?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Try to keep it
I would say
in the 15 minutes range.
Okay.
They tend to be very busy meetings. And if there's like little pieces that you can take out, do that. But also when there's also discussions forums for like bigger, longer conversational things you want to do. I think we're one of the more active users of like GitHub discussion forums. You'll see a lot of discussion, and it's a great place to drop stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd recommend in around a week and a half. We have a meeting that's a Gateway API has a meeting that's EU friendly time slot. I'd recommend taking a 15-minute chunk there.
Okay.
And we can discuss in more detail.
Thanks.
Cool.
Thanks a bunch.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate you letting us know. All right. So just because we're crunched on time, let's go. We got 3 things. Rob, Gateway API v 1.1 plans. We got 6 minutes.
Sure. Yeah. I just doing what I can to avoid any surprises here. If anyone is screen sharing or can screen share, I can pull it up. That'd be helpful, but no big deal if not. This is just for some reason I can't actually see that, but it may just be me.
You can't see my screen?
It's a black screen.
Yeah, I just have black too.
It's Zoom.
I see Shane has started screen sharing and nothing else.
Hang on.
Anyway, I'll keep
there. How's that?
magic. Wonderful.
Okay.
High level, what we're saying in Gateway API community is that we've gotten a lot of things in experimental. So we're saying that before we get anything else in experimental, we need to get things out of experimental. So basically everything we push out of experimental opens up a slot where we can push something in. So in the 1.1 release that we're targeting for somewhere March, April, we are looking at graduating several features. One is route port matching, one is gRPC route, and then this concept of conformance profiles, which is really just our conformance reporting mechanism. We're also splitting out the absolutely massive gap that is policy attachment into different pieces and planning to attach and to graduate the simplest form of that, which is direct policy attachment. So those are the things that we expect can move forward, and we expect them to be considered stable in 1.1. And so we'll probably come back in future meetings as we have a little bit more information about particularly gRPC route and route port matching, just so that, the way Gateway API works is we try to live in our little bubble as a sub project of SIG Network, but we also want to make sure that everything we're doing and working towards is transparent to the broader SIG, and we'll probably bring individual topics, specifically gRPC route and route port matching, up for discussion in the next few meetings, just so that, again, no surprises when we get to the formal review process in March, probably. Yeah, that's all I have there. We also have some things that we're hoping will take their places in the, as new experimental features, but I know we're time crunch, so I won't cover those now. Just heads up, that's what's on our roadmap. Shane, if you have anything else to add.
I was just going to add, since we're crunching on time, and similar to what we said with, you guys over at Quadrant, like, if you have any questions about any of these things, if you have anything that you want to advocate for, please join us. We have a meeting next Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Please join us in our GitHub discussions on the repository. Please check us out, SIG-network-gateway API on Kubernetes Slack, and let us know. Antonio, congratulations to Max, Arnaud, and Sarvash for having the Node IPAM controller under the org.
Woo! Yeah, they moved it this week, right? Arnaud is there.
Yeah, I saw that. Very cool.
Now we need to improve the README, add test, and all the stuff. But well, they did a lot of job, a lot of great job to have it work.
Awesome. Yeah, if anybody wants to go in here real quick and just give it its earliest stars, it's there. Kubernetes SIG's Node IPAM controller. Yeah, thanks for that shout out. I think that's great. Dan wants to talk about, is there anything else that you wanted to say about that one, Antonio?
No, just recognize the work.
Roger.
And I tried to just fill in notes since we're running out of time, although I realize now I was unmuted. So sorry about that, Rob, since I have a noisy keyboard. But yeah, Shane, you were like, oh, Windows and kubeproxy, when we were going over the issues. And so I figured I should add this. But yeah, I talked to them, pointed out that, yeah, we have this problem and we need to figure it out at some point.
What was their answer? That they don't have any plan?
I mean, they don't really have anybody who is super plugged into networking, I guess. They're mostly worried about the SIG node end of things, which is the other place that has lots of Windows specific stuff. So they agree that it's sort of a problem, and then that they should try to find some people participate more in SIG network, but they didn't really have anybody.
Okay, well, thank you for the update on that. Yeah, because yes, I do kind of not know where to go when it comes to Windows stuff these days. But cool. That's because there's no one necessarily to go to right now. So
yeah, but then should we try to move it out? I mean, if it's going to be freeze.
Yeah. I mean, I say yes, not authoritatively, just like that's my first thought is, yeah, we probably should.
But if we're going to do that, we need to finish up the staging the core parts into the kubeproxy repo so that they can be reused from out of tree.
Yeah, I'm not saying, I mean, is a plan or not?
My guess is nobody's got a plan right now.
Well, there are a lot of people working in kubeproxy these days.
Well, maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're asking, but when it comes to how we move forward with the Windows stuff, I was getting the impression that we don't really have a plan right now. It's kind of
we do not have a specific plan right now.
Let me get with internal teams in regards to this, and then we'll circle back.
That'd be great. I mean, repeatedly we run into these Windows issues where we're all like, nobody here really knows Windows. And either we need some ongoing commitment from them to show up here and help triage and deal with Windows issues, or we need a plan to excise the logic and let them do their own thing?
Yeah, 100%. And I will circle back. I
Cool,
will
thank you.
lean heavy on this till I get an answer.
Cool.
Yeah, the problem is it's like 1% of our issues, and so why show up for 1%? Well, because that 1% never gets addressed,
Well,
or
we
is very
should be
slow.
a good community member as well. So even if it's 0%, we still should be showing up.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
So-
Appreciate you going and taking a look at that.
Yeah, so Mike, I will start to attend here and do this bridge to the SIG Windows folks. So I'll help on the triaging decisions of Kuprox until you find someone on Microsoft.
Is that a meme?
That's a me.
That's very awesome. If I understood you correctly, that you're going to help us kind of bridge the gap for a little bit. We appreciate that.
Yep.
Long time no see. Okay, we are over time. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time. We made it through the agenda for today. We will see you in a couple of weeks. And for all these things that you saw today, please do reach out in Slack and GitHub and so forth. There's a lot going on. If you need help figuring out where stuff is, just check us out at SIG Network on Kubernetes Slack. Au revoir.
Thanks, everybody.